As a little kid, I wouldn't even answer if somebody called me Nate or Nat or Nathan. I would just pretend I didn't hear anything. So I don't dig my heels in like that anymore. If somebody says Nathan, I'm certainly going to respond, but Nathaniel, always stuck. You got to work for it, the whole deal. My kind of love for dance was not first and foremost. It was secondary to my passion for theater. I did end up dancing with the Paul Taylor Dance Company, but my stint in that company was brief because I always knew I wanted to get back into the theater. The artistic director thing came as I was doing a lot of regional theater. There would be times that when I was at a good regional theater, like a Virginia Rep, I would look at the artistic director and say, well, that seems like a really interesting chair to sit in. And there's something about the culture of doing gig after gig after gig and not having any of the institutional interest or the ability to shepherd an institution from project to project and season to season. There's something about that gigging culture that never really sat very well with me. And then I thought to myself, well, what am I waiting for? I'm sitting in New York. I'm surrounded by incredibly talented people that I've met doing a ton of regional theater or that I've met in wonderful acting classes in New York. Why don't we just try? And so we dove in and we started a theater company called the Active Theater in New York City, and I ran that for about 6.5 years. I closed my company when I started working on Once on Broadway, and my wife and I had our first child on the way. But I knew at some point in the near future that I would want to get back to artistic leadership, and that I think that suits my personality best. I don't feel like it's little old Richmond. I mean, I think it's an incredibly vibrant community. It's incredibly creative. There's a wonderful university influence here. It's a really exciting place to create. On a personal level, I never really imagined raising my kids in New York City. So the thought that I can move somewhere that is so family friendly, and I hear nothing but raves in that regard, I'm equally excited about that part of my life as I am about the creative opportunity that Virginia Rep is. When I think of artistic leadership, I never really imagined doing that in New York. I always felt like the ability for a regional theater to really bring people together and have a massive impact and influence on their community was always something that felt right to me. In the selection of, not at all. Which initially you think, oh, I kind of wish I had my fingerprints on this, but I think this was a really wise thing that Bruce and Phil have done. And I think it gives me time to get to know the staff, get to know the artists in the community. We're working now collaboratively on rounding out all the creative teams for the season. And I think it takes, in a way, a little pressure off that I don't have to arrive day one and say, here's our new agenda and here's the shows that I want to put forward. So I'm actually quite glad that I wasn't part of that selection process, and I think it's going to be a good thing for us as we move forward. I'll be quite involved. I'm directing In the Heights, which I'm very excited about, and I'll also be directing the world premiere we're doing of David Robbins' End of War. So I'll be quite involved, and then I'm going to be in the trenches every single day with production meetings and coming to rehearsals as much as I can so I can see the way that the creative people in Richmond work on the projects and find the people that I want to continue to work with as we move forward. We have a lot of work to do to establish programmatically how we're going to do that, but I think it's an absolutely essential piece and one of the reasons that I'm here. Bruce and I see eye to eye that the next chapter of Virginia Rep wants to be very devoted to the development of new work and contributing to the theatrical canon. I have some relationships with commercial producers on Broadway who are interested in new work. So that commercial relationship with commercial Broadway producers is something that I hope we can leverage, and we can be part of that development engine of new work that sees production in New York and the West End and off-Broadway. I'm also very interested in trying to find like-minded nonprofits in New York to partner on development with other small theaters, try to establish some sort of pipeline with a venue in New York and a small theater in New York and Richmond, so that Richmond becomes a real part of the dynamic of generating the future of theater. I think the biggest challenge immediately in front of me is understanding Virginia Rep. I mean, Virginia Rep does a lot of things. We have our signature series, we have Hanover, we have our children's series, we do a ton of touring productions. Their community impact with programs like Field and Hugs and Kisses is incredibly important and influential. So really the first step, I think, is the get to know you process with Virginia Rep as an entity, and the relationship between Virginia Rep and Richmond, both the artists and our audience. And I think that's going to take a little time, and I hope everybody can be a little patient with that. So that's the first big step. Through the summer, I'm still directing, or I'm doing at Cortland Rep, which is in upstate New York. I'm doing back-to-back productions of West Side and A Chorus Line, and then I have a play in the city in New York that I'm very excited about mid-August. So we will be working remotely. The exact dynamics of that we're still kind of hammering out, but we're kind of saying let's be engaged at least 10 hours a week, even when I'm working on other projects, so that we can, try to get you as caught up to speed on all the different moving pieces of Virginia Rep prior to October. And then when I get here in October, I can work hand in hand with this wonderful staff to make sure as we move into the 17-18 season, we're all on the same page with our trajectory moving forward. I had a fantastic time working on Starcatcher. I had such a wonderful, game, spirited company of actors. And that play really requires that. I mean, it requires everybody jump on board and use your imagination and paint with the most colorful colors you have in your palette. Bruce Rennie, who is the technical designer here, I mean, he's just a brilliant guy and works himself to the bone to pull off the designs. And I thought he really executed that design. And the whole staff was incredibly supportive of that project and really got behind it. So I had a really, really wonderful experience working on Starcatcher. Well, it's obviously a very vibrant theater town. There's a lot going on. So many different theaters doing so many different kinds of work, which is a wonderful thing. I think any regional theater is at its best when it has a wonderful talent pool in town. There's a lot of regional theaters that just bring people from New York or just bring people from Chicago, and they don't have that homegrown element. They haven't invested in their communities. And to see so many theaters doing such a diverse array of work in town, I think is a really, really wonderful thing. I'm just getting to know all these artists, and I'm just getting to know all these theaters, and fortunately I have at least been able to shake hands with several of the other artistic directors and met them through the process of me being hired in this position. But I'm very excited to get to know the fantastic work everyone is doing throughout town. But it's going to give me this first season, let me have that first year to get to know everybody and the work they're doing. I come from the Southwest mostly. So I was born in California, but we moved to Phoenix. And not to be disparaging of Phoenix, but all of that development is so new that you kind of go from one strip mall to the next strip mall to the next strip mall, and it all kind of blends in and all feels the same. And I love a city like Richmond that every little pocket has kept their distinct personality and has something different to offer in every little corner of the city. And the thought of raising my family in a city like that is very exciting. I don't expect so. I don't want to rule it out completely. Maybe that's something that we decide to do, but at the moment that's not on my agenda. I think there's far more important things that need my attention as artistic director of a big organization like this. I had a wonderful time performing and did a lot of wonderful things and worked opposite some fantastic actors and have loved every second I spent on the stage, but I think that chapter is probably done. She's born and raised in New Jersey. We live in New Jersey now, just outside of the city. We live very close to her family, so we've had built-in daycare and babysitting from Nona, from Lisa's mom, from the day our son was born a couple years ago. But she is also incredibly excited about what this means for our family and what we're going to be able to do for our sons as we move forward. We've had some nice conversations with Stoner over at Richmond Ballet about the potential of Lisa teaching. Lisa's a wonderful ballet technician and a fantastic teacher, so that's a possibility. She's also a heck of a dancer, so you may see her dancing up on these boards before you'll ever see me acting. If we can get through this fall, because we have our second son coming August 15th, and I'm going to move down here 6 weeks later, hopefully move them down in another month after that. So if we get through this fall and into the holiday season, I think we'll be off and running. I'm just incredibly excited about this opportunity, and it's just such a wonderful group of people. I've found such support from the community. I've felt incredibly supported by this board, incredibly supported by the staff, and Bruce and Phil's leadership in this transition has been incredible. So just incredibly excited. Can I say incredible one more time? I think I could. Maybe I'll switch to very excited to see what happens and start working with this wonderful artistic community.